exciting new projects. We are going to start working on what I am calling the Stormlight. After I kept calling it the Thunder Lamp, but there's no thunder. We are going to start working on what I am calling the Stormlight. I kept calling it the Thunder Lamp. You can see the problem with that name if it doesn't actually represent anything about what's in it.
Gonna have enough to add thunder to it later?
It's going to respond to loud. I want to make it respond to loud noises. That's the one part that hasn't showed up yet. We could make it respond to that, and there is some thought of making the adapter somewhat flexible, or the sensor somewhat flexible. And it's not. I know it's not terribly complicated to make basically a spark gap receiver that will set off, that will detect a thunderstorm in the area. So it's a viable possibility.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm using an AT Tiny 85, which is a really different kind of chip. There's not enough room on this board for its own programmers even. So I've got this little third-party programmer here. I bought it for SparkFun. And it'll plug into a USB port, which I have literally just off camera, but the power cord on it doesn't come any further than the edge of the view screen of the camera. And it's a precarious spot. It's hanging right off the edge of the desk. It'll go tumbling to the floor. That just won't be good. So this will be new and exciting to use an actual dedicated programmer before, because I've always used just the programmed it over a UART somehow, serial connection. And these things do not have UARTs. They have 8 pins. They had to sort of make some choices about what are they going to put on there. And they decided that I2C and SPI were much more useful for the average user than a UART was. So debugging these things is a little more entertaining. We can't just use printf debugging on these. So I think this is where our practices of testing first are probably going to save us a lot of grief. So let me change the... first, we should put up a new Chiron. For where does this project live? And this project lives in its own repo, which has nothing in it except a README file. And we'll change the file we're pulling that from to something that's a little bit more relevant to what we're working on right now. So that is the repo, and if you go and look at that right now, it is empty. If you're watching this on YouTube after the stream, then there should hopefully be some stuff in there. We'll see what we get. And this is a great time to add a git ignore, because we obviously don't want that Chiron file. Probably shouldn't be uploaded with it. And we're also going to not want the build folder, and we're not going to want the release folder. Which is where we'll put the final product. So let's just close those two things. And so the idea behind the Stormlight is that it is it's a lamp, and it's probably going to hang from the ceiling on a cable or a chain. It's going to kind of depend on what I can find when I go to Menards. And it'll plug into the wall just like a regular device, or a regular lamp. But when volume gets too loud for too long, I want it to flash like a thunderstorm, or like a lightning bolt, since thunder rarely flashes. So I think a good activity for tonight first we just need to see, can we push code to this device? And after we push code to this device, can we sort of script up the way our build works? We spent a lot of time with the Wolverine flasher, and I did this off camera. Where with the Wolverine flasher, we built up the CMake file, and I think it'd be a really good thing to go through what's involved in setting up those CMake files. Hopefully, a lot of people will get some value out of that. I also think we need a way to tell if we are successful in our efforts to program this little chip. It seems important to me that we be able to blink something or something like that, so I'm going to set up a
what are the key attributes of this chip that you're using?
It's an AVR chipset, much like the last chip we were using. It is significantly smaller, not just in size, but in the resources available to it. There really isn't much on this little chip. So, they're dirt cheap. That's one of the reasons to use them.
Like $3.
Oh, less than $3. I think buying this retail, I paid $3 for combined the chip and the little sockets that they go into. So let me.
Cool.
Maybe that's something we should talk about here. That's the little socket right there. Oops, I did not set that. I did not set that where I thought I was setting that. All right, there it is. Yep, I was actually looking at the wrong camera feed, which will happen. All right, so we're going to just build up this little circuit here. But these little sockets are important because if you've never, for the people watching this who maybe haven't dealt with bare chips before, the little pins on them are very soft, very thin metal. And it's really easy to bend them. You don't want to do that too much. And it's also really easy to overheat them when you're soldering. So what I prefer to do is program it off chip or off board because I don't really have any other option. And then when I assemble my board, I assemble it with that socket on there. So I don't risk putting too much heat on my chip. If I do something bad in the mechanical phase of the assembly, if I bend a pin or break a pin, I haven't damaged the actual chip.
Also good when you let the magic smoke out of them to be able to replace them easily.
Yes, it is. Rather than scrap the whole board that you might have spent more time working on than you'd like to really think about. All right, so let's put our little resistor in here. And we're going to have him come in off the positive rail. And let's go find one of our blue LEDs here. The blue LEDs seem to show up really well. And I wish the focus on that camera was better. Probably if I got it higher up away from the... Just open it. These LED packets are really small and it's very difficult just to open it. There's just not enough room in there. This is kind of entertaining. It doesn't help that earlier this week I was sharpening a knife and I wasn't paying attention when I was cleaning the oil off of it. It ran it right along the edge of my finger, so I got a Band-Aid on it because it started bleeding on me again tonight. Okay, we have our happy little light. Anybody remember off the top of their head, is the long lead the positive lead or is the short lead the positive lead?
Your double E friend should be able to tell you, but he doesn't remember either.
Well, this is where we turn to the magic of Google.
Right.
We quickly Google LED polarity. The long leg is positive. Did I set it up that way? I did set it up that way. I feel so special. I got something moderately right. All right, and let's just to make matters confusing, because I happen to have this wire available, we're going to put a yellow wire on there to go to the negative lead, and then I need a couple of long wires to go to the board. Now, here's a fun fact. I don't recall the pinout on this chip. I was looking it up earlier today. Tiny 85 pinout. All right, and I should find a way to share that with everybody. I think that would be good. I think it would also be good for me to have clicked on the image rather than the link to the image, which, there it is. And I will share this out in the stream. Oh boy. That is tiny, tiny, tiny. It looked big enough on the image, but that is tiny.
We cannot hear you, Lillian. Yeah, I don't see it at all.
Yeah, that would be because I did not open that in the correct browser.
Can you guys hear now?
Yes, now we can hear you. It's good that you're back.
Oh, I was wondering why. I was trying to suggest things. I'm like, oh, I guess they're just in the zone. I was gonna suggest just showing the programmer and the chip kind of together so people can see which part is the chip and which part is the programmer, because that might not be immediately obvious.
Okay, all right. We can do that too. There's the pinout right there, and that's too small to read. That's just ridiculous. But if you've never had to work with a bare pin before, the little divot at the top is how we mark the one end of the pin. And according to this, pin 8 is my VCC. And pin 8 is immediately adjacent to the little divot.
So for all dip type packages, dual inline pins, you start at the notch and go Widdershins to count. So counterclock.
All right, I have to go back to showing the device here. But yes, that is a good piece of information, Butch, for people to know. And I have to find my ground now, and ground is the opposite corner from my VCC, which is pin 4. But yeah, I can, let me bring the, all right, and apparently that pin is already driven high. Oh, no, it's not driven high. I have literally just suffering an ID10T error here. I connected the power and ground to the LED, but we know that the circuit is live now. So it may be necessary to actually do a little thinking, and instead of running the VCC line to the board, I should run PB2 looks good, which is on pin 7, which is immediately adjacent. In just a second, and I will bring that programmer back in line with the camera. All right. And that might be a good opportunity to talk about sort of what it can do. Okay, so that's properly connected now. Not that you can see the whole connection, but let me pull it out. And now that this is actually connected, there's maybe some more things you can see about it with this programmer. So right now, that is You can see that little socket. And let me just pull out a chip by itself for people to see. So that's the chip right there. If I pull that out a little more, it'll be in focus. I got 4 little pins on that side. If I flip it up, we've got 4 more pins on the other side. I'm having trouble getting it angled in properly. So it looks like a little bug.
It's ginormous.
Yeah. Yeah, this is really pretty big. I mean, anybody doing something small is doing surface mount devices. So, but those little pins there are really delicate and they bend easily, and that's why you want these sockets to mount things in. And like Butch said, when you let the magic smoke out, and we're prototyping, we're gonna let the magic smoke out. You never order a chip. You don't order one chip. You always get like a collection of chips because you're gonna let some magic smoke out. But so yeah, there's a bare socket on there. It looks just like the little sockets that I showed earlier. This little fella here. It's just like that, except that it's soldered into that board. And all the connections are made properly already. Just go put that back in its little protective foam. And this is a wonderful little prototyping programmer. As soon as I saw it, I knew that this was the programmer that I wanted. So we've got these little headers here on the side that I can plug my wires into, my DuPont connectors here into. And then those can run to my circuit board. And this way I can have many cycles of fixing the code, or updating the code, updating the circuit until I figure out exactly how everything's going to work. Whereas if I was working just off a board, which is kind of how these chips are designed to work, I'd have a bad day.
So this programmer lets you program the chip and then leave it on the programmer board to test. Oh, that's cool.
And it supplies power, as much power as the USB is going to supply, but that's really more than the chip can take, so that's good. So I'm going to actually move this. I want to put this sort of back in line. As I look at this, there's a wicked twist to that board. Not to the board, to the mounting of the components on it. Some of that might be because of the way I seated the chip. Nope, these headers are actually differing lengths. Oh well. This board isn't meant to be a precision piece of engineering kit. It's meant to be a program, electronics. Okay, so let me rebuild that circuit, but in a way that I'm not stretching out my... Okay, we come to that practical reality that... Okay, that's still on the board. It's off at the edge. What I really need is longer cables coming from the programmer. It occurs to me I can put the flasher further down, the LED further down here. Okay. That's kind of into the screen now. It'll have to do anyway. Alright, so we've got that connected. And let's... Okay. Let's just make ourselves a note here. Our light is connected to... That is port B2 that I've wired that to. So it'll be port B2 that we want to make go on and off all the time. Um, and so I've got a couple of different ways that this could work, the final build too. I bought a string of those fairy lights. It's something like 3 meters or 5 meters of tiny little LEDs attached to copper wire and sort of coated in some sort of resin. They look really pretty, and they'll run off 12 volts, and 12 volt circuit's pretty easy to control. And I've got some automotive relays that I want to try to use to turn that circuit on and off. Now what I don't know is what is the required control voltage for an automotive relay. It might be 12 volts, in which case I'm out of luck because what I have is 5 volt circuits. In that case, we'll have to switch to something else. An H-bridge transistor might work. I might find a solid state relay that can take a 5 volt control voltage. Although I've found that those are not terribly affordable or easy to lay hands on. And I kind of want this light to, it's supposed to look like lightning, and the flickering can be kind of fast. And the mechanical relay will fail too quickly on us if we try to do that. So we'd have to really need a solid state relay or some sort of solid state device that can handle the fast switching. So anyway, I feel like we should start by trying to get some code to the device. Build a little code, get it to the device. Now I want to, because I am fundamentally lazy, I'm going to cheat and steal a lot of what we had from the Wolverine flasher. So I guess the other option that I have for doing this is, or for the actual light-looking thing, is I found some 12 volt, fairly bright LEDs. The little G4 ones that you put into a socket that you use in a lamp. Those are incredibly cheap. I ordered something like a dozen of them for I think $10. At most, I would need 2. If I can have them flashing flashing each in their own sequence, I think we can make a pretty good little display. But even just having one of them would look pretty good. So let me copy that up to put that in the Stormlight folder. So that's the Magic AVR toolchain file that we had. And let me look and see if the CMake lists that we used last time had anything really exciting in it. No. It's got a bunch of stuff we should probably have. Okay, so I'm going to copy it over and we can file the serial numbers off. Well, I guess I should ask the room here. Do we want to just use the magic we had before, or do we want to try instead to build up our own CMake file as we go?
I'm always a fan of stealing from old repos.
Okay.
You have it and you know it works, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, well, most of the magic is in that toolchain file that you just saw me copy into the folder. But we'll stick a CMake lists out there too. And so there's our CMake lists. And I guess, a good mob programmer would have already started a collaboration session and shared it with you. You've got this sort of shenanigans instead, so I will share this out in our chat session for you folks. Alright, so folks can join me when they're ready. Now, if we want to get really nervy with this sometime, we could do this in Tmux and Vim too, but I already traumatized Lily enough with that during the day. I haven't even done that to you in almost a week.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing it just when I'm working solo for just to keep the muscle memory. All right, so we need to change some things here. The AVR MCU, this is no longer an AT Mega 328p. This is an AT Tiny 85. And I've got to be honest, I'm not sure if that's the right actual name to give for it. This would be a really good time to go look at AVR libc. And they actually define all of the devices that they recognize. All right, and let me just paste in the link here. All right, there's a link to where you can get all the names. AT Tiny 85 is the correct name for it. That's great. And I am going to guess that that's an 8 megahertz clock speed, not a 16 megahertz. Let's take a look. All right, internally it is by default a 1 megahertz clock. Pretty slow, but faster than we need, so I guess I'm not going to worry about it too much. All right, so I'll tell you what. Let's just tell it that it is 1 megahertz for right now. So we'll replace the 16 with a 1. That's just so incredibly slow. All right, there's a fuse that we could change on it, and it is a writable fuse. Most of these devices, a lot of these devices, the fuses are not writable. When you set it, you have set it, and you just have to live with it. Or at least some of these fuses. There's protection fuses on there that can keep a device from being reprogrammed. So if you put something in the field, it doesn't get repurposed for something else. So okay, we've got that. Our toolchain file hasn't changed. I feel like we should give the project a different name besides Wolverine.
Maybe.
Let's be radicals here and call it Stormlight, since that's what we called the repo. So that's there, and we need to make this says we need to make a source folder, we need to make a test folder, and we need a Unity folder. Well, conveniently, I know where to find all of those things. Actually, I don't need to find any of them, but I do need to take a look at that Unity folder and see. Okay, that looks like it's up to date. So we need to make a Unity folder here. And maybe this is a really good question to ask. Do we want to stick with Unity? Do we want to try a different test suite for this particular project? Gtest is really nice, especially if we work in, if we decide to work in with Google Mock as well, and in C++. Any preferences?
I could go either way. I think the deciding line is how much effort you want to put into the setup for the testing framework.
All right, let's go with Unity then.
Yeah.
I've got it set up here. It's not that Gtest is hard to set up, but it's different to set up.
Yeah.
I actually absolutely love using Gtest. It is one of my favorite test suites. And after a long time using JUnit And Makito, I really came to appreciate all the wonderful things that I should share a terminal with you folks too. Let's try this. All right, we have a terminal. Okay, we have our Unity folder. We have our source library. Lily has found the terminal.
Making sure I have right access.
Just because I occasionally forget to give that. All right, so we're gathering all our goodies there. Excellent. And we have an existing CMake here too that we'll just build our it will build all of our stuff for us. So you can see we've got a CMake file there now. Before we just casually run this thing, let's see if it does the right thing. Sets the library name. It's going to get the right files. Yeah, I think that's all right. All right, I'm going to cede control of this to who wants to take control right now.
Doesn't matter to me.
Go, Lily.
All right, we'll give it to Lily. So we're following you, and I think we need to get this Unity library wired in first.
Okay. You're probably going to have to tell me how to do this step by step.
Oh, yeah, sure. Go back over to the CMake lists. It might actually already be wired in. Okay, it is. See there where it says add subdirectory Unity?
Mm-hmm.
We're actually good there.
Okay.
So, well, that was an easy first step.
So in CMake, the thing it does that's nice is that you use add subdirectory and it goes and looks for a CMake file in that subdirectory and does what it does.
Yeah.
So it does all the magic recursion underneath there for you.
Yep. And Lily, at the day job, I've been isolating you from that, and I probably need to force you into it more. Force the client into it this week, and he's taken to it quite well, and he's starting to enjoy working with it, which is probably a worrying sign. We need to add a test folder, too, so why don't you go in and add that test folder.
We're in the Unity folder here right now, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, don't put it in the Unity folder.
Okay.
And let me. I have to take a look and see, is this thing sane or is this going to do insane things? I think it's good, actually. So. Conveniently, I actually made a really. For Wolverine, we wound up making a really good generic CMake list. In fact, a lot of these CMakes are generic enough that they're pretty portable across other things. All right, and if we go look in there into the test folder, I think we'll find it. If you want to... Oh, I was going to open that up, and it occurs to me that no one's going to see that on my screen. I was going to have you open it up, but they wouldn't see it. So there's our CMake lists, and this is incredibly generic. We need includes from this folder, from the source folder, and from the Unity folder. We just name the program test dash whatever the project name is, so it'll be test dash Stormlight. We take all of the .c files in this folder. We add them to the executable. The only thing that wants changing really is there on line 10. Probably give it a more appropriate name. There on line 12, we're saying go look for libraries in the Unity folder when you're linking. And on line 13, we're saying actually link the Unity library that you find. And then on line 15, scroll down just slightly. Yeah. 15 through 17, we're saying that the Unity target is a dependency of this one, so build Unity before you build this one. And then finally, we're saying let's add a test to the whole thing. Now, if we actually tried to run CMake right now and run a build, we'd run into problems because there's no test main down here. So maybe I should go grab a test main too.
So that on line 19, that first argument to add test, what does that stand for? The LED.
That's just the name of the test.
Okay.
And that's the CMake name of the test. It's not, you can give it whatever name you want. It's kind of good to set a pattern. And in fact, when working with the client, we made a macro that you drop the macro, you give it the name of the test and the external dependencies, and it'll just figure out automatically what to do with the rest of the folder. So all our tests have a pretty consistent naming pattern. It works out quite nicely. I figured out how to do that kind of from the stuff we were doing here in the stream. So let me go grab a test main because test mains all look about the same. Alright, now our file tree. Yep, now we've got a test main there. Let's go ahead and go and look in there, Lily.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it occurs to me, I don't think I'm following you anymore, am I? I touched the mouse once, so I'm not following you anymore. Alright. So this is pretty close. We load the Unity, include the Unity fixture. We have a run all test method. We're going to run the test group LED. If we wanted to rename the test group for this, I think that would be reasonable. But we really are trying to make an LED blink today.
Yeah.
So I think that's fine. The one thing I would like to check on, I don't know which. I'm hoping that goes right back to the USB B0. But I'm going to take control back for just a minute. And this is a Linux box, and so dmessage will tell us about all the different things that got connected. So apparently that device that we hooked up is called FabISP. I'm not seeing it identify the name for it yet. This looks promising. It isn't, but it really looked promising. It definitely did say that it was a new USB device. Oh, and I think we're up here. Nobody cares about my finger sensing or finger spread sensing touchpad. Well, I can see that it's on USB device 13. I don't have a name for it yet. That might be exciting. Don't know what the name is yet.
Where would the name be identified in that list?
It would be somewhere in this stream of stuff, but I don't know where in that stream of stuff is my problem. It's a little bit different for each device. It's kind of one of the problems that we have. USB devices have a lot of flexibility in what they can be. Since the camera that you're looking at that on is a USB device, the headset that I'm speaking at is a USB device, and that programmer is a USB device. So they have a lot of leeway on what they can put down, what they can output. They are not particularly uniform. Huh. What does USB give me? Nothing that is satisfactory. Huh. Okay, a bunch of TTY devices, but I don't think any of them are... None of them leap out and say, I am your device. These look like they're actually just terminals. Okay, so that'll be the first fun thing. That'll be the very first fun thing to sort out. And this is, I mean, this is just kind of what happens when you're working with new hardware that you're not familiar with. You've got to work it out. And maybe let's step away from that for a minute. Let's just write a test in the LED suite. And let's see if we've just got our build working.
Okay.
And let me go and grab. I'm just going to go look at the boilerplate for the test because. And I'm going to try to look at a useful branch. Maybe a branch that we recently ran. And we'll get a look at what one of those tests look like. Okay, and I'm going to steal control again and make a file here. We're just going to call it test LED again. Because I'm not very creative with the naming and it doesn't matter that much. So include Unity fixtures, so we've got our test stuff. And let's create our test group. We'll call it LED since that's what it's expecting. Test setup for LED. Right now this doesn't need to do anything. We don't have any mocks to reset or anything like that. And we need a test teardown, and that is an underscore in it. So Lily, at day job, when you're making a new test, are you actually able to type this in on your own, or are you always just going in and stealing it off of an existing one?
Oh, this I've got down.
Okay.
Yeah. Typed these things many times.
I still have to go in and file the serial numbers off of an existing one.
I've also made the mistake of teardown being one word many times.
Yeah. I think everybody does. On that. Okay. So I don't feel like we need a lot of empty lines in there since it's not going to do anything. All right, let's write a test that proves that our happy little device is working. And I will hand control back over to somebody else. I guess we'll follow you for the moment, Lily.
Okay. We want to just have a test that fails first, just to make sure
I think
this
so,
is all
yeah.
wired up properly.
Oh, hey, should we give that test a name?
Fail. Here we go.
All right. Let's save it, and I guess go ahead and we need to make our build folder, and our default state in this repo is that we run tests, so you don't need to put any flags to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
So we're making the build folder for an out-of-tree build. For those who aren't familiar with them, the objects that get built will not live with the source code.
No flags?
No flags. We have flags. Oh, it's really grumbly there.
You haven't made Stormlight.c yet.
Oh, let me scroll back up and see what's going on there. Yeah, that's going to hurt us. So let's go. Oh, we don't have a source folder. So let's go ahead and go make a source folder. And let's put a Stormlight.c in it. It doesn't need to be anything in Stormlight.c because we aren't going to call anything. All right, and apparently,
Okay.
Yeah, I think that'll be fine. Because I touched the keyword. Yep. All right.
There we go.
Yeah, I didn't have it scrolled down so we could see what you were up to, but
Oh,
that's all right.
I
But
just made an empty Stormlight.c. Went back into the build folder and ran CMake.
oh, nice. You didn't even. I'm trying to follow you in the UI, and there's like nothing going on. And yeah, no, that's good. That's a nice
So
fast
just-
way to do it.
So now run make and make sure it builds. Ta-da.
Cool. Let's do a
Okay.
make test. See what we get. Look at that. We failed. Exactly what we wanted. Let's run the actual executable.
Where is that now?
It'll be test/test-stormlight. Look at there.
Perfect.
That is the failure we were looking for. Okay, so we wired it up correctly. This seems like a great time to commit and push.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to do that, or do you want me to do it?
Have you already created the repo?
The repo was already created, and this is linked to the origin.
Are we on the branch you want to be on and everything?
Yeah, I don't feel like I want to do feature branches on this one.
Okay.
I don't normally do that in my personal projects. Unless I'm doing something that's going to be really breaking, but I try to follow good work-off trunk practices where I make small changes that don't break. Oh, we've got a lot of stuff. Yeah, I think all that gets added.
So I don't see you're doing anything special there, so I'm going to cheat and do that,
All right.
which didn't do anything because I'm in the wrong folder.
Yes, you are in an interdicted folder. It does nothing.
So we'll start over.
For those following along at home, Butch is doing this because it makes me twitch. There's all our edit stuff. You can see that all showed up in the
And there's no extra
stage
junk.
changes too.
You know, those are all got all the folders with the get dot, and there's nothing in the folders that we don't want to have, so we don't have anything to undo.
Yep. We're not using an editor that writes temporary files out in your workspace, so we didn't have to put anything in for that.
Is it?
I think that looks reasonable. I think just a git push will do it. And yep, you can see all of our stage changes are no longer staged.
I am excessive in my get statuses. You've already,
That keeps you from finding ugly stuff.
yes. You've already done that.
Yep. Did that just before we came on air. I suppose I should go check and see if anybody's got questions for us. Oh. And okay, well that is special. We are not actually streaming. The network connection has failed.
Oh no.
Okay, it's picked itself back up now. That's good. That was, you know, they might have got it. It might be all right. We're just gonna hope that people got it though.
So we can do the news thing if you're just joining us after that.
We're experiencing technical difficulties. All right. Let's see. We wouldn't have had too big of a glitch. The streaming software does a pretty good job actually of pushing stuff out, reconnecting if it disconnects.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a working build. What are we at? We are at 50 minutes. So we've set up a build and we've sort of introduced the hardware. Do we have anything else we really want to try tonight? I feel like 50 minutes of watching people set up hardware and a build script might be trying their patience. On the flip side, if anybody has insomnia.
So what will our next steps be when we come back? Rejoin us next week.
Yeah, I think when we come back next week, the right thing to do is probably actually get that light blinking. It's going to be, having never pushed to this device before, I have no idea what I'm stepping into with it. Is it going to be as simple as the 328Ps, where you push to it and it just goes, or is it going to be a little harder? The 328P has the luxury of there's a bootloader on it. This device doesn't have a bootloader. We are pushed to that SPI bus and it's pushed. It just goes into memory, which moderately terrifying capability, but there we have it.
Does the build chain that you have set up have all the linker configurations that tell it where we're pushing, where we're binding it to what memory addresses and things like that?
It should. The AVR chips all seem to be. They have a flat memory model, not like the ARM chips, which you get to create your own maps. That video you showed me that you sent to us, Butch, about setting up C++ on an ARM chip was educational. It wasn't just the TI chip that Lily and I are using with the client, which is an ARM chip. There's a lot of unique features of that chip to begin with that are separate from it being an ARM chip. But we have to deal with the linker map on that, and that was an education for me.
Any chip going from being compiled into C and to where it needs to go, that somewhere in there it needs to tell it that it's, even if it's starting at address 0, that your entry point is at address 0 and everything else is relative to that. So
yeah, the AVR tool chain, because the AVR chipsets all seem to use that flat memory model, the tool chain seems to have that sort of mapping built in.
Okay. Cool.
But with the flexibility of the ARM platform, there's just no way you could do that. Every different chip has. You don't even know what your registers are going to be, because every chip is so different. So. Anyway, I think that's probably enough for this week. But yeah, next week we will hopefully have a little bit better setup so I don't have to jury rig the camera setup on it, and we can see the programmer and the board and everything all at once, and we can have something a little nicer there. But yeah, I think next week we'll actually be able to get this thing flashing for us.
Cool.
And for those following along at home, by the time we get the code done for this, we will have also published a list of all the parts if you want to build one of these yourself. And you will have had a chance to see all the code built. So you should have everything that you need if you want to build one of these yourself. Use it as a launching point for your own project. So we'll get those out, and I'll set it up so how do you get all the parts from Amazon, so you can just order it rather than having to go hunt through electrical suppliers. Which is fun if you've got the patience for it, but if you haven't done it before, it might be a little intimidating. All right, that said, I think we'll sign off. Anybody has anything else we should bring up? Anything from you, Lily?
Nope.
All right.
I think I'm good.
Anything else from you, Butch?
No, I think that was a good evening.
All right. Well, we'll see you folks next week. Look forward to people coming back to see what we get up to.
Good night.
Good night.